Welcome back to On Texas Football. The normal Tuesday night live stream is live here at On Texas Football on the On Texas Football YouTube channel. I'm Jeff Howe, joined as always on Tuesdays by CJ Vogel. This edition of On Texas Football brought to you by Andy Luedeke and My Perfect Franchise. We tell you more about Andy and our sponsors throughout the night. CJ, we're about, and you wrote this, actually authored a piece on this at ontexasfootball.com today. About 48 hours away, I guess under 48 hours now, until the start of the NFL draft. Not going to be as busy as we've seen the draft be the last couple of years. Still, what, 5, 6, 7 guys potentially getting their names called over the course of 3 days. Still going to be a good day, a good draft for the Longhorns, just not quite as robust as it's been.
Yeah, look, 31 draftees over the last 3 years. It's hard to sustain that level of NFL production this year. A bit of a hit, but I think obviously when you see what 2027 will produce over the 5 years, you'll continue to balance out about a 10 draft pick per year production from the University of Texas. But yeah, I had 7 guys getting drafted. I think that's all the ultimate best case scenario. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, again, you get guys in that 5 to 7 range in terms of producing in a down year. That's a great promotional marketing tool Texas can use when it comes to recruiting and the portal.
Joseph Douglas asks, by the way, get your questions, comments, whatever you got. We'll address as many as we can. Super chats, as always, jump to the front of the line. Joseph Douglas asks, CJ, where will Taft go? I feel like Michael Taft, Ethan Burke, and DJ Campbell are kind of in that 6th, 7th round mix, somewhere in there where it's just going to take one team to fall in love with them to pick them, or hopefully, I got a feeling Michael Taft's more likely to get drafted than DJ Campbell or Ethan Burke. Hopefully all 3 go, but probably CJ, Michael Taft somewhere in that day 3 mix, like 6th round-ish.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And again, testing in a 4.51 on the 40, that was fantastic for Taft. Look, he's not going to wow anybody with the measurables, but you sit down next to him and you just talk ball, you talk life, you talk just who he is as a person, a GM, a coach, an exec, whatever. They're going to fall in love with the person that is Michael Taft. Not to mention, look, he's been an All-American, right? Not many safeties that enter the NFL draft earn that type of accolades before, and he's played a lot of football. He's been a captain at Texas for a long time. I'm with you, Jeff. I think ultimately it's just one team needs to fall in love with him, and there's a lot to like when it comes to what he's done at Texas.
That's 2-time All-American Michael Taft. Let's get some draft stuff out of the way. I just we'll go ahead and talk about it since the questions are coming in. We do have some spring football we want to talk about. Also going to get to some schedule rankings, strength of schedule. Bill Connolly, based on his SP Plus rankings, released his strength of schedules for college football in 2026 today. Texas, the toughest schedule in the country. We'll get to that. Cisco Diaz asked CJ, is there a guy that could surprise and get drafted instead of going undrafted? I'm thinking probably not, but if somebody does, maybe it's Cole Brevard. If somebody just has a need for, hey, they really have a need for an over the ball nose. I don't know if there is that guy this year though that's gonna just surprise a lot of people and end up getting his name called.
Yeah, I think in previous years it was like I don't know if I was totally expecting Keelan Robinson to end up getting drafted.
Yeah.
Vernon Broughton went, I think, 4 rounds earlier than maybe what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's been some guys that either test significantly well towards the back end of the draft process or to what you talked about with Michael Taft, a team just loves him. And, with this one, I guess Cole Brevard's probably that one answer. I know a lot of folks are going to point to Ethan Burke being a combine snub, not being truly recognized for what he was able to do during his time at Texas, plus some of the athletic profile that comes with his kind of package for the NFL. So those are probably the 2. But beyond that, I don't know. I don't know if there's really it's not a lot to choose from if you're Texas when it comes to someone under the radar completely that'll sneak into this one.
No, I think the guys that are on the radar are pretty solidly there. I think it's more likely that maybe a DJ Campbell or an Ethan Burke maybe doesn't get drafted and goes the undrafted free agent route. And, it's going to be all about kind of where their agents position it. And some guys, once you get to that late in the draft, we talk about it every year. In some cases, you may be better off being an undrafted free agent where you can kind of pick a spot where you're more likely to make a roster, have a better chance of making a roster than just being stuck with whoever takes you in the 6th or 7th round. And a form of the same question, CB says, does Texas break their 17 pick record next year? I have a and this is no disrespect to any of the guys that got drafted in '84, but when the draft was like 12 rounds at that point, like I'm looking for school records, CJ, like in the 7th-round draft, which started in 1994. So whatever your pick number is, it's 13, either last year or the year before. That to me is the school record. So 17, probably not. D Train says over under on 12 and a half draft picks next year. I'm taking, the over sounds, it's not crazy to take the over there. I mean, we talk about this roster, CJ, and I think everybody that attended the spring scrimmage, open practice, extravaganza, bonanza, whatever we're calling it at this point, you can see the talent on this roster. I mean, it's pretty evident. There are some guys that are going to have to improve their draft position. But, we talk about just the first round talent on this roster. I mean, we talk about Arch Manning, Trevor Gooseby, Cam Coleman's in that conversation. You're going to be in the double digits before you really start nitpicking. Okay, where does this guy fit in the draft? Like the 2027 draft class for Texas. I didn't even mention Colin Simmons. So that's 4 first rounders potentially right there. 27 class is going to be a historically good class for Texas.
Yes, it absolutely will be. I think there's 4 first-round picks, and I think you're very easily clearing the 12.5 number there going to the high side. Now, that in turn sets a lot of, expectations to what this team needs to do, and they need to go play well. They need to live up to the billing. You can't be like a 2025 Clemson where you come in with 4 first-round picks for this year's draft, and you go 7-6, and you're in the Pinstripe Bowl wondering what the hell happened to the season. So, look, again, this is kind of – the last month I've sat here and said, I don't want to get over my skis. And I feel like I'm doing that, saying Texas will very easily clear 13 or 14 or 15 NFL draft picks next year. But should the season go the way that it should, Texas will be in a position to hear that many names called. They'll be in a position for that many first rounders to be called. And they'll be in a position to win a lot of football games, Jeff, next fall. So ultimately, you're right. The talent is fantastic. It is, in my opinion, the most talented team Sark has gotten to work with while at Texas. But it means nothing unless they start to win games when week 1 kicks off.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you there because, you and I and Hank South have done a couple of videos on the channel looking at our post-spring depth chart, and man, there's just not a lot of holes. I mean, you're down to the point, CJ, where man, only injury or just unexpectedly bad performance is the only thing that's going to hinder this team. Or, hey, I mean, coaches have messed stuff up too, so there's always, I guess, a chance that could happen. But man, you're really almost grasping at straws, figuring out a way. Okay, this team should be in the mix for a national championship unless just something that we're not even thinking about right now happens.
Yeah, and I've tried to rack my brain onto what that could be, barring injury, right? Catastrophic injury to Arch Manning, Trevor Gooseby, Colin Simmons, some of the marquee names that we're talking about. Like, where is the deficiency in this roster? And, there's obviously the glaring question or just the unknown of, okay, will the offensive line truly take a step forward?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it will. Again, I don't think it could get much worse than what we saw, especially in the first half of a year ago. Not to mention, I think you have more talented running backs that can create and extend plays when things aren't blocked perfectly. So that in its own right should help out the running game and take some of the pressure off of Arch Manning. But I don't know where you fall on this. What is the biggest hurdle right now that Texas must clear or might come their way that we're just overlooking right now? Do you have anything in mind on that?
Well, I'll reference a piece that I wrote after the spring game. I actually wrote this Saturday afternoon, evening over on TexasFootball.com. And I had three questions that I felt were answered at the end of spring practice and 3 questions that remain unanswered. And the 3 questions were, will the offensive line be better than it was last season? I'm in agreement with you that, it will be, just because I can't imagine it being worse. but to what extent is it better? Like, we still don't know because we still got to see all these parts working in concert. So that remains an unknown. I mentioned the role of the tight end in the offense, but that's more of me wondering how diverse Sark's going to be. Tight end's not something that's going to hinder this offense from reaching its potential. They're going to be a part of it. How big of a role will they play remains to be seen, but you've got enough weapons at wide receiver and running back that if you just end up running less 12 personnel, I think you're going to be okay. And the third thing, CJ, is maybe the big one, is we just don't know anything about the kicking game right now.
Yeah.
And special teams is one of those deals where, man, if you just have a bad night, there are going to be a Joseph Douglas as kickers. What worries me. Yeah. Just because it's an unknown at this point. Like, you're going to have one of those games where you play a C minus D plus type game. Like, everybody, every team, every year has one or two of those. But is that going to be like in Knoxville where your special teams cost you like 14 points and leaves a bunch of points on the field and you end up losing a game, or on the road against LSU? And then I said it when we did kind of a way too early look at the schedule and looking at like, where's the trap game, trying to do win-loss predictions. We did that several weeks ago here on the channel. I just think, CJ, the SEC is too deep to expect any team to just run the table. Like, at some point, you're going to come across against a really talented team. Kind of like Texas did last year with Florida. You're going to play a talented team that may not, in theory, be better than you, but you're not going to play a very good game, not play a very good, clean game. They play their best game, and you lose to a team that, in theory, you should have beat. That happens to everybody in the SEC at least once a year.
Yeah, it does. And, the best way to prevent that is to have someone that takes that step and is almost superhuman on the field, right? We saw that last year with the national champion Indiana Hoosiers, right? You look at what Fernando Mendoza was able to do in that final drive against Penn State, Jeff. I mean,
yeah,
when you play a C- game or you play a D+ game, something in that range, and you need plays to be made to save the game, to save your season, whatever it may be, do you do that? Does your quarterback, does your offense, does your wide receiver or star running back, do they make the plays that you hope that they would make in crunch time? And evidently we saw exactly that, right? You're hearing Fernando Mendoza go 1-1 to the Raiders this year. Omar Cooper Jr., the one who made the fantastic toe drag catch in the end zone on that very play, sneaking into the first round. Does Texas get that out of their stars when they absolutely need it? Because to your point, this is a tough league. We'll talk about it all the way throughout the rest of the season, the rest of the time that Texas is in this conference. The week in, week out is very difficult. But when your superstars play like the superstars that they should be, well, that certainly allows you for more room for error, which in turn should help you net more wins than losses.
I mean, there were games last year, like Georgia's a team I look at, right? Just because they won the league and they're still the road to the SEC championship. Yes, the game is in Atlanta, but you got to go through Athens to get there. And you think about like Georgia's game against Tennessee, like they didn't play very well. Their defense was terrible, but their best player, like Gunnar Stockton, made plays when it counted. And that's what you're talking about. Like, can your best players make plays when the chips are down and nothing else is really working? We wax poetic and rightfully so about that 04-05 run that this program made. None of that happens if Vince Young doesn't convert a 4th and 18 against Kansas by himself. Like, that's the kind of stuff you're talking about. Like, just make one of those plays. Like, well, it's one of those deals where if you're on the other side, you're like, we had him exactly where we wanted down in distance. We had the right defense called. Just you tip your cap to that guy because he's just awesome, and just you can't account for just a great player making a great play. I feel like Arch is pretty close to that point. Not to say he's VY because they're different guys, but I feel like Arch is that point, CJ, where he elevates everybody around you. And I think we saw toward the end of the year, the A&M game, the run in the A&M game, the run again in the Michigan game. Like, yeah, when you needed your best player to put the ball in his hands and go step on someone's throat for a win, Arch did that.
Yeah, he absolutely did. Rod B calls it putting on the cape, right? To be that superhero, to go to your closet and put on the Frozone suit and go out and save the country or the city, right? Look, Arch, to your point, did that several times. And, there's a few games in that runs Arkansas, Vanderbilt, where, it may not have looked like it was the big run against Michigan or Texas A&M, but just continuing to put drives together to put points on their board, to go up from 2 scores to 3 or 3 to 4, to extend that lead with as little time as was remaining, that in turn, that's just as big of a play almost. So, the consistency that we saw in the back end of the season with Arch, with more pieces, with more protection, I'm hoping we see that more consistently this year, because the glimpses that we saw in the second half, I don't know if there was a quarterback that was better than what we saw towards the back end of the year.
No, he was playing as well as any quarterback in the country. We'll keep the conversation going. Good discussion. Again, keep the questions, comments coming. We'll take them. Super chats, as always, jump to the front of the line. But right now, let's thank our lead sponsor for the Tuesday night live stream here at On Texas Football, and that is Andy Ludicky in My Perfect Franchise. If you find yourself stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you can make or your schedule, just give Andy a call. He'll take you through a process to help you find a business that's going to fit your skill sets and your financial goals. Franchise ownership is something that's not for everybody, but if you've got a desire to take control of your destiny, call Andy or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Again, that's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. And we want to thank Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise for sponsoring the Tuesday night live stream here at On Texas Football. CJ, in chat, I'm a little disappointed because nobody's brought this up. But we talk about things that could hinder this team. If the penalty issue doesn't get cleaned up, that will cost you a game or two.
Yeah, well, it absolutely will. And, the one thing I'll say to that is, fortunately, Texas is putting together an offensive line with a lot of experience, right? You have snaps across the board with this projected offensive line. Now, defensively and in special teams, you have as many snaps back there as maybe you've seen in recent years. So, it should in theory, but hey, you won't really know until Texas kicks off against Texas State, Jeff.
Yeah.
Muschamp should help.
I hope so. And I hope the fact that you've got a more, not experienced at Texas, but you just got an older team, that'll help. I'm not asking for Texas to be what Indiana was last year and finish, number 1, number 2 in the country in penalties. But if you're in the middle of the pack nationally, that is leaps and bounds better than you were this year. You were, I think, the second worst team in the Power 4 in terms of penalties per game. And you were at the bottom of the Power 4, the bottom of FBS and penalty yards per game. You can't be that bad and expect to go undefeated or be in a position to get into the playoff, to make the SEC championship game. So, yeah, the penalty stuff has got to get cleaned up. I do think Muschamp is going to help that, just because you'll be a little more buttoned up, especially on defense, but that'll bleed over to the offense. And I just hope an older team can take care of some of that naturally. Kyle asked if the baseball game is still at 7:30. As far as I know right now, it was pushed back to 7:30. I haven't gotten anything. Just check my phone. Just seeing an update. Hang on, Kyle. It just came down from literally 1 minute ago. It has been canceled. So no baseball tonight at UFCU Dishwalk Field. Texas was supposed to play Air Force. Supposed to be the salute to service game, but that game is not happening. It is canceled. So next time we'll see the Longhorns is going to be on Friday night against Vanderbilt in Nashville. So no Tuesday night baseball for the Longhorns. But CJ, they did. It's really weird. They won a series against Alabama, but you win 2 out of 3, but you lose that Sunday game, so it doesn't really feel like you won the series. If you'd have won for Friday and Sunday, or when Saturday and Sunday, it almost feeling like you feel a lot better. But I don't know. It's really weird to feel bad about a series win, but that was not an excited clubhouse on Sunday over at the Dish.
No, when you end any series only scoring a run, Jeff, I mean, it's hard to, get back at home, get in the locker room, whatever it is, and feel good about the performance you just put out there, even with a series win, even with, a strong Friday and Saturday, right? Friday night was a dominant performance, and you sat around saying, okay, this is kind of what Texas was hoping to look like on Friday nights throughout this year. But no, it certainly left a bad taste in the mouth. But look, you win a series against a top 10, top 15 opponent in the SEC. You won't find many complaints, but I'm sure that's a game that Texas would have liked to have had back, no doubt.
All right, I wanted to get to this story published today, this article published today by Bill Connolly over at ESPN, who does outstanding stuff with SP Plus. Been following Bill Connolly stuff for a long time, even before he was at ESPN. his initial SP plus strength of schedule top 10, and he's basing the strength of schedule off his preseason SP plus rankings. CJ, he's got Texas number 1 in terms of strength of schedule. If you look at the top 10, Texas is going to play Arkansas, who's got the second toughest schedule, Oklahoma, who's number 3, Ohio State, who's number 4, Ole Miss at 7, Mississippi State at 9, Florida at 10. So, yeah, once you start doing that, it makes sense why this Texas schedule is rated as highly as it is. CJ, which is tougher? And I don't know, maybe the team, the makeup of the team can impact your call here. Last year's schedule or this year's schedule tougher for Texas?
I mean, in regards to the road games, this one is significantly tougher. Having to go to Kyle Field, Death Valley, you go to Neyland, of course, they're going to be very welcoming in Como, I'm sure, in Columbia, Missouri. But look, I don't know if I'm sold on Tennessee. I'm not sure I'm sold on Missouri.
You shouldn't be.
So, when it comes down to it on paper and the way that I just portrayed it, it should be significantly more difficult this year. But I don't know if I see it that way, just because when you look team to team, where's the talent? Where's the direction of the programs? I don't know, Jeff. I don't know.
There's too many wild cards for me on this schedule. Like you said, Tennessee, I can't make heads or tails of Tennessee right now. LSU, I have no idea what they're going to look like year one under Lane Kiffin. Obviously, you play Ohio State, but at least you play Ohio State at home. You're going to go to Kyle Field, like you said, and hopefully what I love about the A&M game coming back is the first two in the renewed edition of the rivalry. It's had some pretty major implications on it both times, where A&M could have gone to the SEC championship game with a win. The game 2 years ago in College Station, it was, hey, winner's going to Atlanta, loser gets to watch the game at home. And then Texas won that game. And then last year, Texas kept A&M from getting to the SEC championship game. So, yeah, there's some wild cards. I said going into the year last year that I felt like last year that I could remember was the toughest road schedule I could remember a Texas team playing. When you consider you go to Columbus, going to Florida, we knew that was going to be tough just because of the environment, and Florida was talented. They ended up being not a very good team, and Billy Napier got fired. And then obviously you had to go to Athens to play Georgia. Again, because of where Tennessee and LSU are this year, CJ, I don't know that you definitely can't say that, but yeah, this schedule, that's why I there's going to be a loss in here somewhere, CJ. I can't pick Texas to go undefeated just because of the totality of the schedule. Like at some point, just the totality of it, I feel like is going to catch up with you. If it doesn't, we'll be talking about a historically significant undefeated regular season if Texas makes it through 12-0. There's no question about that. I'm trying to figure out, CJ, where the stumbling point is, and I don't know that I can call it right now, but I know there's going to be one somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I think some folks in the chat even pointed out, I don't care if it's year one, going to Death Valley at any point, playing a team with talent at LSU, that's not easy to do. That is going to be the most difficult game that Texas plays this year. I think even over Ohio State, obviously over A&M by quite a margin, even over Oklahoma in Dallas. I think that game in Death Valley is going to be very difficult, given the stakes, given the anticipation, given the Lane and Sark, given Arch returning to Louisiana. There's storylines there that will make that game more difficult than maybe it appears in a matchups perspective. But I'm with you. When you have 6 teams on your schedule that are also in this top 10, that's tough. That's tough.
And LSU, to your point, it's the 6th game you're going to play in a string of 8 straight games without a bye. Yep. Remember, in the SEC, you don't get the double bye this year. Everybody just gets one bye week. So, man, it's just, I don't know. Like it's weird. Like I'm calling a Texas loss for no reason other than I just think the whole deal catches up with you. It's got nothing to do with the team, nothing to do with the opponents. It's just me looking at the schedule saying, if you make it through undefeated, then dude, you're a historically significant team. Like you're right up there with 05 and that 08 team that should have played for a national championship. 83, which had an undefeated regular season. 77 had an undefeated regular season, even though I'm not going to say smoke and mirrors, but that was, hey, Earl Campbell right, Earl Campbell left, Earl Campbell up the middle with a great defense. But yeah, we can keep talking about that if you want. CJ, anybody on that top 10? Again, it's Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Michigan, Northwestern, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Florida. Shocker. It's all SEC and Big Ten in terms of the toughest schedules. Anybody on that top 10 jump out to you in terms of them being able to navigate a tough schedule?
Look, if you're a Northwestern student, you might as well just skip ahead, go to class, get your education ready for the spring semester. But Arkansas has kind of been in this boat for the last 3 years, I feel like, and I'm sure, if you have friends that are Arkansas fans or, you'll hear all about the Heartbreak Hogs. I don't know how they do it. In any sport, they'll find a way to choke away the most safe looking lead ever, but then they'll also be handed one of the most difficult, outrageous looking schedules and slates possible. So, good luck, Pigs. Good luck.
Yeah. Hey, you can't be careful what you wish for. Arkansas, they went to the SEC. They wanted Texas to be one of their permanent opponents. So it's all right. We'll give you Texas. We'll put Texas on your schedule every year. And then along with everybody else, you're going to play in the SEC. I want to look at OU schedule real quick, CJ, because I don't know if anybody realizes their second game. You talk about teams that we don't know what we're going to get because of a coaching change. Their second game is at Michigan. OU won the game last year. That was a game that set offensive football back about a decade and a half. And then they get New Mexico at home, and then they go to Athens. So basically 3 of their first 5 games are at Michigan, at Georgia, and then Texas at the Cotton Bowl. It's not going to shock me. If OU gets through that with 2 losses, then that's about as good as you could feel ever being an Oklahoma fan watching your team start 3-2.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think I was truly, up to date with how difficult that is to start. Look, UTEP, New Mexico, a little breeze through that. But, I think Michigan can't be worse than what they were a year ago. Right? I mean, that team was a disaster. They didn't have a quarterbacks coach to watch tape with their freshman quarterback. They just refused to teach.
A head coach. You'll have a head coach who I got to feel Kyle Whittingham's focus is going to be much more on the football field than where Sharon Moore's focus was in hindsight.
His head will certainly be on the sidelines versus the old coach whose head was in the stands, So that's great. Look, I don't know if they're going to beat Georgia. Oklahoma's defense should match up well with just about anybody on this schedule. I believe that 100%. Now, will the quarterback take a step forward? That remains to be seen. And I still don't know, outside of Isaiah Satania and, now Parker Livingston, do they have the weapons to put fear in opposing defenses? Right now, I lean no by a considerable margin.
They got to see if playing a bunch of young guys on the offensive line pays off because they had offensive line issues last year, and they had big time running back issues. Like they just, unless it was John Mateer, they just flat out could not run the football last year.
Right.
So, hey, but you look at their schedule. I mean, not that it matters to any of us, but after the game in Dallas, you look at it, man, they could maybe go on a nice little roll. I mean, they've got a navigable schedule after that. It's just, man, those the 3 of their first 5 games are going to be, it could be rough.
Could be.
But yeah, I know we're all going to shed a tear for OU playing a really tough schedule, but such is life in the SEC. All right. Hey, let's give a shout out to another one of our sponsors and let you know that this edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by Prize Picks. I'm telling you right now, if you're watching games and you're not on the Prize Picks app, then you're doing it wrong and you're missing out on half the fun. It gives you a reason to care about everything going on, every play, every moment. It all matters with Prize Picks. You're locked in the whole time. You have a chance to pad the wallet a little bit along the way, and it's easy. Nothing complicated about it. No nonsense. If I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. You're just going more or less on player stats. That's all you're doing. Points, yards, hits, assists, whatever you're watching, just build your lineup and then let it ride. You can literally make and submit a lineup in about 60 seconds. And the best part is you can mix and match sports however you want. Maybe one night it's hoops, and then the next night it's baseball. You can mix and match anything and everything. to put some hockey in there, some golf, esports. If you're into esports, you could do that as well. However you want to play it, the world is your oyster in terms of what you can do with Prize Picks. For today's action, we're going all in on Lifetime Longhorns. First up, Kevin Durant. We're going more on 23.5 points for KD. He's been averaging over 28 per game the last couple of weeks, and he's been on fire of late. We're going with Jackson Hayes to have more than 1.5 free throws attempted. He's been shooting at least 4 in every game during the month of April. And on the diamond, we're taking Cody Clemens to have more than half a strikeout. That's the fun of it. You just trust your read on it, throw your lineup together. Now you got a reason to care about every single swing, every single basket. If you haven't tried it yet, now's the time. Just download the Prize Picks app, use code HMA, play $5, and they're giving you $50 in lineups instantly. It's code HMA, play 5, get 50. That is one heck of a deal. And as always, play smart, play responsibly, play Prize Picks. D-Train, yeah, we're not feeling sorry for OU at all. Like, Texas had one of those kind of schedules last year where everybody's trying to figure out where the Texas losses were coming. OU's got that. Hey, you go to Florida. I don't. Florida's got to come to Austin. I don't know what John Summerall's going to have. It's one of those years, CJ. I remember being at SEC Media Days last year, and you could kind of sense what was coming. There was like, man, there's stability. Like, you got a bunch of returning coaches, and like you've had some stability. It's like, yeah, well, there's a chance like Sam Pittman and Billy Napier and maybe Mark Stoops. Like, there's a bunch of coaches that are here right now that probably aren't going to be here next year with their teams. And now we just got mass coaching turnover in the SEC. So it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment getting used to seeing some of these new faces in some new places. John Summerall at Florida, Will Stein taking over at Kentucky, obviously Kiffin at LSU, Pete Golding in the big chair for a full year at Ole Miss. So it's going to be interesting, but it makes me feel better about Texas being able to navigate it again, bringing back the same head coach, that same entitled offensive coordinator. We know Stark's the play caller, so there's no change there anyway. You do change defensive coordinators, you bring back the same special teams coordinator, but like you've got a lot of familiarity with this league. Like the defensive coordinator you hired, okay, who as a defensive coordinator, CJ, is going to be better equipped to navigate the SEC than Will Muschamp?
Yeah.
Not that many coaches.
No.
So I don't know. Anything else, CJ, you want to say about schedule before we move on?
No, I do think a very underrated aspect of the schedule, again, is what you mentioned. You only have one bye. Texas has that bye, I believe, week 4 going into Tennessee or coming out of, I think it was Tennessee bye and then Oklahoma.
Yes.
That's going to be a lot of football in a lot of consecutive weeks. So, look, I think that's a big reason why you're just continuing to see Texas stock up on guys that, shoot, if their only contributions are running down the field on scout team kickoff or, on the front lines, hey, that's one more opportunity where you don't have to put a guy like a Lance Jackson or, name anybody that has contributed meaningful snaps to either side of the football where you're risking injury. And so the 105 scholarship limit that Texas is working every day, it feels like, Jeff, to get closer to that.
Yeah,
I think is in large part because they're looking at the schedule saying, okay, when we play our 8th game in 8 weeks, are we equipped to sustain an injury, to sustain hits to multiple position groups? Where are we from a depth perspective? And right now it feels like they should be able to weather the storm, but of course we won't know that until we see that.
Hey, have you crunched the numbers lately to look at where Texas is at scholarships with the recent additions plus putting Red Anderson on scholarship?
93 or 94 is where they're at.
Yeah. Okay. So, and Sark talked about it. Hey, they're probably not going to get to 105, but they're probably going to get a little bit closer than I thought. And
definitely.
They still might not be done. They still might add another piece or two before it's all said and done. Let's get to some questions. CJ, we actually got a super chat from Sugar Poppy Chulo. Thank you for the super chat. Said if Texas goes undefeated, they're up there with 2019 LSU. They would be. Now, if you go undefeated in the regular season, you got to navigate the playoff. And 19 LSU, you still had the playoff, but you had to beat Oklahoma in a semifinal and then go beat Clemson. If you're Texas, you got that. You'll have that extra game to play with an undefeated. Plus, you got the SEC championship game, and then the 3 playoff games you got to win a national championship. So yeah, it is. If Texas navigates this schedule, though, going undefeated, like I said, it would be historic. It's something historic for this program. You'd be talking about one of the best regular seasons in school history. CB says if Muschamp allows OU to score a touchdown, there should be consequences. Does anybody have the day count? How many days it's been since Oklahoma last scored a touchdown against Texas? CB, I think CB or somebody's been tracking that. You guys can get a day count to me. I want to rehash that and refresh it just so we got it. D Train asked, he said, can we talk about tight end? I feel good about our talent and depth, but how do we see guys like Masunas, and I'm assuming that's Spencer Shannon, in the passing game, and where does Winston and Townsend fit on the depth chart? So I think, Matthew, I don't know if you've got that depth chart. We had a depth chart graphic we were playing with before the start of the show. There it is. Thank you, Matthew. So you got your Y tight end, which is your inline tight end. We've got Michael Masunas or Spencer Shannon as the number one. And then your H tight end, which is your move guy. Nick Townsend's your number one move guy. And then Winston behind him. CJ, this kind of leads me into something you posted over on TexasFootball.com. And it's some names you thought had solid moves this spring, and then guys that you think need to have strong summers for fall contributions. Spencer Shannon was in that second group. So guys I really think need to have strong summers for fall contributions. You listed Jaden Shatman, Spencer Shannon, Michael Terry, Xavier Filsaime, and Jonah Williams. I think Filsaime and Williams, obviously because they were injured and missed spring practice. But Spencer Shannon, CJ, are you surprised that he's as much in the mix at that Y tight end as he appears to be coming out of spring?
Not really, because we saw this a little bit last year, right? We saw, it was Jack injuries, and then that next guy up was Spencer Shannon, and it was the second vet in the room. Of course, it was Jordan Washington, and two freshmen right below him. So, that made sense to give the guy that's been in the system, that's been around in the weight room for multiple years to give him the nod. And now I expect that to be a similar case this year. And, I maybe a little bit more right now than I thought coming out of the spring. But look, I still need to see it from Amari Winston that he can go in there and dig out an end or dig out a linebacker and create a hole that wasn't there previously. And for Nick Townsend, I know that he'll hit anything that moves. But what kind of threat can he be in the passing game? Yeah. He had a drop in the spring game. He had a couple drops a year ago. Is that something that we need to be worried about? I don't think so, because I think Nick Townsend's a fantastic athlete. I think coming from a basketball background, there's athleticism there that we didn't see a year ago, or at least it's untapped to a degree. So, I don't think it's worrisome, but I can't rely on it right now, not in April, right? Because I just haven't seen it against a Texas State. I haven't seen it against a Kentucky or a Texas A&M outside of a handful of plays for either of the two. So look, this fall, I expect it to be Michael Masunas, and I expect it to be Spencer Shannon to begin, and then we'll see what starts and how they start to get different personnel groupings onto the field as a result.
I like the little snapshot we saw of Masunas on Saturday. I was encouraged.
Yeah,
we saw. Yeah, caught that little pass in the flat and then turned it up for about an 8-9 yard gain. That's the kind of stuff, CJ, that he he's going to be a really good C gap and out blocker and be able to be able to set an edge and be a force in the run game. It's can he be similar? And again, I'll mention him in the same way I mentioned these other guys. The way that Jeff Swaim and Andrew Beck functioned at Texas, if they were open and there was a decent sized window, you could trust them to catch a ball.
Yeah.
I'm not asking them to go moss anybody or anything like that, or, catch and run something for 30, 40 yards. But hey, if you're open enough, can we count on you to make a play? That's all I'm asking Masunas to do. Nick Townsend's what he does, what he does over the summer and what he's able to do in camp leading up to the regular season. He's the guy that's going to determine the ceiling for that group. Because like you said, if he figures it out and Sark can trust him to be on the field, because we know Sark loves to run a ton of 12 personnel.
Yeah.
And if he's able to do that with this group, man, Nick Townsend can take the ceiling of this offense. He's a guy that can raise your ceiling probably quite significantly just because of the untapped potential he's got.
Yeah, look, I did not know that this was something in the bag of Michael Masunas. He posted some of these photos earlier, I believe, Monday afternoon, and obviously I took one, I tweeted it out and said, look, I didn't know that he had this level of verticality in his bag to do that against a Grayson Littleton, who we know has been one of the best slot fade guys, one of the best at guarding corner routes from the slot. That's encouraging, right? And I'm not expecting him to go up there and have the contested catch ability of a Gunnar Helm or the after the catch ability of a Jack Injuries, but if he can give you this, if he can be someone that teams have to game plan for and at least say, God, safeties have to hold the seam a little bit longer if he's running up it. That then in turn gives all the more opportunity for a Cam Coleman or Ryan Wingo or Sterling Burkhalter or Khalid Lockett, whoever it might be on the outside to then go make a play with more room to work with. So this right here is something that I was very encouraged to see, Jeff.
No doubt. Like I said, it's just knowing how much Sark loves 12 personnel. That's great. But, man, your tight ends have to be able to perform at a level where if you're taking a wide receiver off the field, like if you're taking Emmett Mosley or Jermaine Bishop off the field, then whoever else is on needs to be able to deliver. If you're taking one of the backs off the field, whoever's on there in their place has got to be somebody that delivers. Like it can't just be, well, let's just run 12 personnel for the sake of running it because that's what we've always done. Like I think you're not maximizing downs at that point. You're just doing stuff for the sake of doing it. So I know Sark says all the time, hey, the more things we can do well, the tougher we are to defend. Well, 12 personnel needs to be something that it's that diverse of a package to where it's not predictable and you can be wide open and, mix it up within the formation and be a little versatile with it. So I want to see that. Jason asked an interesting question, CJ. We'll get to that actually here in just a second. Right now, I do want to give a shout out to another one of our sponsors here on the Tuesday night live stream. That's Mark Saunders. Mark is our long-running sponsor of the recruiting breakdown here on the channel. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Well, here's some good news. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. If you're looking for somebody local to the Austin and Round Rock area, go ahead and give Mark a call, 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? With more than 35 years of experience, you'll be in good hands with Texas alum Mark Saunders. Again, give Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office a call today, 512-218-8571. Again, that's 512-218-8571. And we want to thank Mark Saunders for sponsoring the Tuesday night live stream here on Texas Football. All right, CJ, let's get to Jason's question. Would you say, by the way, anybody that's just joining us, the baseball game was canceled tonight, so no Tuesday night baseball at Dish Falk. Jason's question said, would you say that Texas has been a physical team since Sark arrived? They've had physical dudes, but a team identity is what I'm referring to. Will Muschamp or Jaluk change this? Has Texas always been physical since Sark arrived? Not always. It hasn't been consistent, but I can't say that this program has been soft under. Like there was nothing soft about that 2023 team. Like that they were able to run the football. They got to the point where even when Jonathan Brooks went down, by the way, I'm still dying on that hill in case anybody's wondering. When Brooks went down, they were still able to run the football and run it well enough to put themselves in a position to win a national championship. And they had one of the best defenses in the country with what were Sweat and Murphy, I guess two of the first 35 picks in the draft. So, yeah, that team was not soft. The 2014, defensively, they definitely were not soft in 24. Again, it just wasn't consistent, CJ. Like, you don't have Trey Wisner run for $186 in College Station in a high leverage game and be soft. I do that, by the way, without Kelvin Banks, who I think only played like 3 snaps in that game. So it just the consistency wasn't there. And then last year, like, yeah, it was what it was. It's the worst running game Sark has been associated with at the college level as a play caller or a head coach. Like, that's just call it what it is. So that's that you can't say you're a physical team with that on your ledger.
Right. But the one thing that you can hang your hat on if you're Texas looking for a reason to say Texas has been physical, what has been kind of the defensive theme over the last few years? Goal line stance. Texas has sat there, and the most memorable moments that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years has been Texas's ability to absolutely stonewall opponents trying to gain 1 single yard. Now, on the flip side, offensively, there's been that issue to gain that yard. Right? We've seen that against Oklahoma. We've seen that against teams like UTEP. So, yeah, there's give and take there, but all in all, you win. I believe they're 33-8 in the last 3 years. I don't know if you can call that a soft program, but there's plenty of reason to think that this program can ascend when it comes to their physicality.
To me, it's less about physicality with me. It's more about discipline, because I think the discipline bleeds into physicality. Like when you're tired and it's 4th and goal at the 1, and look, everybody, it's will on will at that point. Do you have the discipline defensively to not jump the snap? Do you have the discipline to do your assignment, do your job, play assignment football, and not be out of your gap and be the reason why they score a touchdown? Offensively, do you have the discipline at that point to not just fire off the ball and knock somebody backwards? Do you have the discipline to not false start, to know the snap count, to do your job, to play assignment football? So that might sound cliche, CJ, but like we talked about the penalty issue earlier, like I think that's part of it. Like, so I think physicality and discipline, yeah, you need both of them. You need a healthy dose of both of them if you're going to win a national championship.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And we saw that with Indiana. We saw that with, to an extent, Miami, who was significantly less disciplined from a penalties perspective, but there's no denying about their physicality. I mean, their run game was superb. Their front seven was full of future Pro Bowlers, right? So can Texas have that? I think so. But if you want to win a championship, Jeff, no denying it. It's got to be a disciplined football team. It's got to be guys that play their sound, assignment without putting their team at risk.
Yeah. We can keep the physicality discussion going. As a matter of fact, we'll keep it going. Ryan Nelson's question. Ryan says, CJ and Jeff, thoughts on Brandon Baker's strength levels going at SEC defensive tackles at guard? Will he be able to push people? But Baker kicking inside, CJ, it's more than that. I think his athleticism, because you got to think about what a guard's job is. You're asked to pull a ton. You're asked to climb to the second level on zone runs. So I think the athleticism is there. I'm not worried about Brandon Baker being able to move people, because he moved people at tackle. He, other than Trevor Gooseby, he might be the next piece on the offensive line that I'm not worried about. I'm not, maybe that's my bad, but CJ, I'm not worried like at all about Brandon Baker kicking inside and being successful.
No, look, there's going to be a bit of an adjustment curve, right? Again, he's learning on the fly right now when you're going against a guy like Ian Giffard, right? Rod Watson, Alex January, Hero Canoe, these guys are really good interior guys. Not to mention, hey, we saw specifically in the spring game, Jeff, how often Texas is blitzing a Justin Cryer or Rasheem Biles. So his eyes are going everywhere. And I'm sure there are times this spring where, it feels like things are going a million miles per hour, but that's what you hope to see. And that's kind of where you hope he would be in now, right? At this point in the year. You don't want that to happen week 4 when you're in the swamp. They're playing all sorts of songs and music, the crowd's chanting, and you're sitting there saying, well, probably words you can't say on this live stream.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think right now the strength should be there. He's been in the system for 3 years, comes from a great high school program in which he played guard at previously. And to me, it's all about the quickness. If you can beat the other man off the line of scrimmage with your first step, your odds of winning that rep and displacing that guy increase significantly. And it sounds like so far, having talked to Kyle Flood, talked to Steve Sarkisian, that's where they really start to see a lot of the growth with Brandon Baker right now, is that first step in quickness.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it, especially looking. I don't like sometimes how often Texas pulls their guards or pulls linemen, especially in short yardage, but they do ask him to do it. And I have no doubt that Baker is going to be really good at that. So yeah, I'm not worried at all about Brandon Baker moving to guard. Let's go ahead and give one more shout out to our lead sponsor here on the Tuesday night live stream. That's Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. Do you want control over your own destiny? If you do, then maybe franchise ownership is right for you. If you think that's the case, then call Andy Ludicky. Andy's an expert at placing people in the right franchise that fit your strengths and finances. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your destiny, call Andy or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Again, that's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. And we want to thank Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise for sponsoring the Tuesday night live stream here on Texas Football. All right, CJ, as we get ready to wind down, I want to go back to your list, just kind of I want to run down some of these guys. Again, we talked about Spencer Shannon, but guys that you think need to have strong summers to be contributors in the fall. Jaden Chapman, is that more so in your mind about just the battle that's to come at left guard?
Yeah, look, he had his opportunity this spring to really put himself in a good position to win that job and hold on to that job in the fall. And, I think there were some moments in the spring game where he's going to watch the tape and say, okay, if I want to win this job, I have to play better. I have to pick up the splits. My eyes have to go from A to B to C quicker to make sure that I'm protecting the quarterback or creating run lanes. So what does that mean? It means there's going to be an ongoing competition at left guard. And stop me if you've heard that before over the last 12 months, Jeff. But I think with Lawrence Seymour coming in, that's where you hoped it would go. Now, it's going to be up to Lawrence Seymour to win that job completely when he arrives, or it's going to be Jackson Christian or Devin Coleman or one of these guys right now that Texas has seen at the tackle position with Andre Kojo and Jordan Coleman stepping in saying, okay, if no one's going to win this job, I will, because Texas will not have as long of a leash when it comes to an adequate play on the offensive line when they obviously saw what it looked like a year ago.
Yeah, they will not. They're not going to wait a couple of games to figure it out.
Nope.
Like if you're not getting it done, they'll be pretty quick with the trigger, I would think. You got Michael Terry on here, and I don't want to. I feel as I've gotten further away from Saturday, I wonder if it's just like if I'm getting too excited about what I saw, or maybe I'm right and like, hey, if Michael Terry can build on what I thought was a pretty solid day on Saturday, man, he might have a role and potentially a significant one on this offense. Like I just liked what I saw from him on Saturday.
Yeah, I need to see the physicality translate. Look, big body. He has all the tools to do exactly what he wants on the field, what Texas hopes he can do. That's both out of the backfield. That's both as a threat in the receiving game with the ball in his hands. But is that physicality where it needs to be? When he gets the ball, is he running through arm tackles? Is he running through faces? At 6'3", 225, 230 pounds, he should be able to. And I saw a little bit of it, but I want to see more. And when he gets to that more and he stops thinking about, okay, is that a guy I can run through? And he just says, I'm running through him anyways. Then you're really starting to work with a big time potential at the running back spot for Michael Terry.
Yeah. I'm continually surprised that it seems like it's just more natural for him at running back than it was a wide receiver.
Yeah. Look, he played a lot of running back at Alamo Heights. He received the ball out of the backfield more than he threw it, more than he caught it. They gave him the ball out of the backfield on counters, powers, reverses, whatever you want to say. He's not completely new to seeing the game from the backfield, but this level and physicality he is new to. And that's where the adjustment and development period has to come in a little bit.
I wouldn't mind it too if they experiment him. Look, maybe Sark is never going to bring the Wildcat back offensively because you had kind of the perfect Wildcat back with Rojo. But I wouldn't mind seeing Michael Terry take that direct snap every now and then just to mix it up, see what it looks like. And then, CJ, I don't know that we need to really go into detail about Xavier Filsaime and Jonah Williams other than those guys just need to get healthy and get back on the field.
That's it. Get healthy, get on the field. Show me what you can do because, again, that safety spot has a lot of snaps up for grabs right now. Derek Williams, I thought, had a solid spring. I think we're excited to see what he can do fully healthy again. Yeah. But what does that look like when Texas digs into its second and third string? A lot of snaps up for grabs in that safety room.
So you got four guys that you thought made solid moves, and I'll add 1, 2 at the end just to make it an even 5-5. Deuce Cunningham, Jordan Coleman, Colton Vostok, Jermaine Bishop, CJ. I can't argue with any of those. Shout out to Deuce Cunningham because he had a couple of plays on Saturday that were like, wow, like I didn't think he could close like that. Like he just looks a little quicker, looks a little more sure of himself now than he did, I think, at any point last year. I was pleasantly surprised with Deuce Cunningham on Saturday. And then, the other three, Colton Vostok got healthy. We talked a lot about Jordan Coleman and then Jermaine Bishop. I think that's he speaks for himself.
Yeah, I think so. Deuce, good for Deuce, right? Because this was a guy that came in as a linebacker originally, had some issues or, not an easy time adding weight. And he said, what's safety like? and you go to safety. And this spring, I heard his name quite a bit, and that kind of goes back to snaps being available to whoever's in the room. Do you make the plays when your opportunities are there? And it sounded like for about 2 weeks span, he had really impressed some guys. So does that mean he will play? That might depend on what that weight looks like, but it does show that he's on the right path to being a contributor again on special teams, to putting himself in the running for 2027 to really be a big contributor for the Longhorns. So right now, I really liked what I heard, and I liked what I saw as well from Hayward Howard Jr. That 7-on-7 portion of the spring game. I was like, okay, I just saw back-to-back PBUs on very difficult plays that really showcased the length and that speed, that closing speed. So there's talent there. It's young talent. Will we see it all this year? Again, we'll have to wait and see, but you like what you saw. And for Muschamp, I think he's sitting there saying, I get to work with these guys for multiple years, Jeff. Sign me all the way up.
The guy that I'll add, CJ, to give you 5 there, Dylan Sikorsky, played the 1 year at Oregon State. Okay, so what does that really mean? Like, you look at who they played. Tennessee really wanted him. So, okay, so he's got value for other SEC programs. But, based on kind of what we heard as spring went on and what I saw on Saturday, I feel like he'll be, he's a good backup piece to have this year. But as you go into 27, CJ, I think between he and Jackson Christian, I think one of them's at center, one of them's at left guard to start spring ball in 27. I think those two guys, at least right now, have the inside track to start at 2 of those 3 interior spots.
Yeah, I think so. And that's a great problem to have. It was kind of, I don't want to say it was, head scratching when Texas took Sikorsky, but then you looked at it from a bigger picture and you said, okay, well, if they're not done at the guard spot, well, you just put yourself in a great position to have a multi-year contributor for a guy that's already played quite a bit of snaps. So, I'd love that addition now, especially with the way that you're starting to see Texas also add to other rooms, saying, yeah, it makes sense. They want depth and they want guys that they can develop for multiple years, just like on the flip side is Zion Williams. So right now, I think that's a great call, Jeff. And I think, again, there was promising signs that you can build off to once his body gets to where they want.
I'll give a shout out to 2 more guys as we wrap this up. Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles. I know you, Hank, and I talked about it when we did our defensive depth chart show for the channel, but the strides that those 2 guys made, where they were almost like out of sight, out of mind as true freshmen, but the strides they made in the spring, especially Josiah Sharma, just looks like a different guy. And, for those that weren't there on Saturday, one of the times that Will Muschamp got the most fired up he was all day is KJ. I can't remember if it was KJ Lace or MJ Morris, but the quarterback gets flushed and has to roll out, and Josiah Sharma just books it down the line trying to get to the football, and Muschamp was fired up. You love your big nose tackle giving an effort like that. It makes me feel, I'll say it reinforces, CJ, that Texas has a really, really good defensive line coach in Kenny Baker, seeing the strides that those guys made after basically what was a developmental year for both of them.
Yeah, look, if your room plays hard on snaps like that, that means that they care about their coach, they care about their snaps, they care about the game of football and their defensive coordinator. And, if you can get every room to play just like that, you're going to put together a pretty gnarly defense, Jeff. And I think Kenny Baker's room could be leading the charge when it comes to the extra effort plays that we talked about on the interior there.
All right, CJ, anything you want to offer in closing as we wrap this up?
No, this rain's making me exhausted. So no Texas baseball to watch tonight. I'm ready to hit the hay, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm not too far behind you at this point. And by the way, let's just openly chastise Sandman. Sandman, you're showing up 3 minutes before the live stream is done. Let's just, I don't know.
Get him out of here.
Let's talk about Matthew. Permaban might be in order. I don't know. We'll need to talk about that with the OTF council, see what we can do about that.
Yeah, 48 hours in jail.
See what we can do about that going forward. All right, CJ, thank you for the intel, the knowledge, the expertise, as always. Big thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it, the MVP at On Texas Football, doing a great job making sure he is the engine that makes us go here at On Texas Football. Big thank you to our sponsors, Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise, Mark Saunders, and our friends over at Prize Picks. If you're not a member over at OnTexasFootball.com, now is the perfect time to get over to the site and take advantage of our spring sale. When you sign up, use the promo code OTFOG and become an OTFOG and get 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $39.95. Make sure that you hit that like button before we're done. Make sure that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel and you've got your notifications set so that way whenever we go live, you're not missing any of our Longhorn coverage or breaking news. And hey, before we get out of here, I just want to say one more time, if I didn't say it enough over the weekend, and this is the first live I've done since Rod and I were live for our spring game post game. The love and support from our viewership, from the OTF fam, it's overwhelming, man. It's awesome that everybody appreciates and supports the product that we've got going on here. Big things are to come for On Texas Football. We're just getting started. So seriously, honestly, thank you everybody that came by and shook hands or chopped it up with us or, made it to the meetup with Bobby over at Posse East on Saturday. It's always great to hear from the OTF fam and connect when we're out in Gen Pop. So definitely appreciate all the love and support that we got on Saturday. All right, that's going to do it for this live stream. If you got any questions, comments, anything else, you can direct it to the guys at Coffee and Football bright and early tomorrow morning. I will be back tomorrow night with the Wednesday night live stream with lifetime Longhorn Marcus Myers. The next time you'll get CJ on the live is Thursday night with that normal winning drive crew of CJ, Rod Babers, and Coach Bob Shipley on get a little bit of the first round of the NFL draft on that Thursday live stream. CJ. So
yeah,
probably not going to see a Longhorn taken on night one, but hey, that's all right. It should be a pretty good weekend for the Longhorns nonetheless. All right. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.